Introduction. Why talk about porn history? Because it's a fascinating journey through human culture and psychology. Today, the global porn industry is worth billions of dollars and is one of the most visited sectors online. Yet it remains a taboo topic, wrapped in curiosity and controversy. In this documentary, we explore how porn evolved from ancient cave paintings to AI-generated fantasies and what it says about us as a species. Let's dive in. 1. Keycap: Ancient and Prehistoric Representations of Sexuality. Let's rewind thousands of years. Some of the oldest artworks created by humans focus on sex and fertility. Cave paintings, carvings, and figurines such as the Venus statues emphasized exaggerated female features, large breasts, wide hips, symbolizing fertility and life. These figurines, like the Venus of Willendorf, date back around 25,000 years and show that sexual imagery was central to early human societies. In ancient rock paintings, sexual acts were sometimes shown as rituals for successful hunting or tribal prosperity. Even before written language, humans expressed sexual curiosity and reverence for reproductive power through art. Phallic symbols were also common in prehistoric art, signifying male virility and creation forces. These artifacts highlight a deep connection between sex, survival, and spirituality. Fertility was essential for the continuation of the tribe, and sexual imagery was revered rather than hidden. Unlike many modern societies that treat sex as taboo, prehistoric communities saw sexuality as a fundamental part of existence. Moreover, these images weren't always meant for private enjoyment. They often had communal or ritualistic significance. Shamans might have used them in ceremonies, or tribes might have shared them to celebrate life and natural cycles. This reveals that from our earliest days, humans were captivated by sexuality, both as an artistic muse and a sacred force. 2. Keycap: Ancient Civilizations and Erotic Art. As ancient civilizations rose, erotic expression evolved and became more sophisticated and widespread. In Mesopotamia, sexuality was intertwined with religion. Sacred prostitution in temples dedicated to fertility goddesses like Inanna and Ishtar was common. Sexual acts were seen as part of divine worship and blessings for prosperity. In ancient Greece, sexuality was openly celebrated. Erotic scenes were depicted on pottery, sculptures, and mosaics. Symposia, social gatherings, often involved discussions of love, sex, and philosophy, and same-sex relationships were widely accepted. Greek mythology is rich with tales of gods and mortals engaging in passionate relationships, illustrating a culture that saw eroticism as natural and divine. The Romans embraced erotic art as well. Explicit frescoes adorned the walls of Pompeii's bathhouses and private villas. Phallic symbols were believed to ward off evil and bring luck, appearing everywhere from jewelry to household decorations. Roman attitudes toward sex were pragmatic and less morally restrictive than later Christian-influenced societies. In India, sexuality was integrated into spiritual life through texts like the Kama Sutra, which goes far beyond positions and physical techniques. It discusses love, pleasure, aesthetics, and emotional connection. The temples of Khajuraho and Konark are adorned with intricate erotic sculptures, symbolizing the union of human and divine energies. In China, Spring Palace paintings, Chun Gong Hua, depicted explicit sexual scenes, often accompanied by poems. These were not simply for titillation, but were believed to harmonize yin and yang energies. Japan's Shunga prints flourished during the Edo period, presenting detailed, colorful scenes of intimacy that were celebrated rather than censored. In these ancient societies, sexuality was not seen as shameful or purely private. Instead, it was woven into daily life, spirituality, and artistic expression. Erotic art and literature served as both educational and celebratory, showcasing a far more open and accepting approach to human sexuality than many modern cultures allow. 3. Keycap Middle Ages and Religious Influence. With the rise of Christianity in Europe during the Middle Ages, attitudes toward sexuality shifted dramatically. The Church promoted the idea that sex was sinful unless performed within marriage and solely for procreation. Erotic art and open discussions about sex were increasingly condemned as immoral and dangerous to the soul. Many previously celebrated erotic artworks were destroyed or hidden. Church leaders labeled sexual desire as a distraction from spiritual purity. Celibacy became idealized, especially among clergy, and virginity was praised as a virtue, particularly for women. Despite these restrictions, human curiosity and desire did not disappear. Erotic literature survived underground. In the 14th century, Giovanni Boccaccio's The Decameron featured stories with sexual themes, offering glimpses into more liberal private lives. Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales included bawdy, humorous stories reflecting common folks' desires and relationships. In the Middle East and parts of Asia, erotic traditions continued, though often under the watchful eyes of religious authorities. Works like The Perfumed Garden in the Arab world explored sexuality in a more open, albeit discreet manner. This era created a deep-rooted sexual shame in Western culture that persisted for centuries. The suppression of erotic art didn't eliminate it but pushed it into secrecy. As a result, a parallel world of underground eroticism flourished, feeding into clandestine art, coded poetry, and private gatherings. Secret collections of explicit artworks, sometimes referred to as cabinets of curiosities, were kept by the wealthy elite. The strong influence of religious morality during the Middle Ages laid the groundwork for the sexual repression that would dominate Western societies well into the modern era. These restrictive attitudes would later clash with human curiosity and lead to significant cultural shifts during the Renaissance and Enlightenment periods. 4. Keycap Renaissance Early Modern Erotic Art. The Renaissance, 14th, 17th centuries, marked a dramatic shift in Europe's approach to sexuality and the human body. With renewed interest in classical Greek and Roman ideals, artists began to celebrate the nude form as a symbol of beauty, strength, and divine creation rather than merely as a source of shame. Artists like Michelangelo and Botticelli depicted nude figures in their works, often inspired by mythological themes. Though these were not explicitly pornographic, they opened the door for more open depictions of sexuality in art. Titian's sensual paintings, like Venus of Urbino, presented erotic themes through a refined, elegant lens. At the same time, cabinet paintings, small, private artworks commissioned by wealthy patrons, often included more explicit content. These pieces were hidden away and shared only among close circles. The advent of improved printing techniques allowed for discreet distribution of erotic engravings and pamphlets. In Japan, Shunga prints gained immense popularity during the Edo period. These colorful woodblock prints depicted explicit sexual scenes and were often gifted to newlyweds as a form of sexual education and good luck. Shunga art embraced sexuality as an essential, joyful part of life. In Europe, underground erotic literature flourished. Works like The School of Venus and Fanny Hill pushed boundaries, often facing bans and censorship but circulating widely, revealing a growing appetite for explicit content. Erotic art and literature during this time began to challenge religious and moral authorities. While public standards remained conservative, private collections and secret exchanges thrived, highlighting the tension between repression and curiosity. This era set the stage for the modern concept of pornography, content created specifically to arouse. The combination of artistic skill, evolving printing technology, and a curious, rebellious audience laid the groundwork for the pornographic explosion that would follow. 5. Keycap: the printing press and rise of erotic literature. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century revolutionized not just science and religion but also the distribution of erotic materials. By making mass production of books, pamphlets, and engravings possible, it democratized access to information, including explicit content. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Europe saw a rise in erotic literature and clandestine pamphlets. Books like The School of Venus and Aretino's Dialogues discussed explicit sexual content openly, sometimes under the guise of medical or educational instruction. Though often banned, these works circulated in secret and were shared among intellectual circles and curious laypeople alike. The 18th century brought even more provocative works, including John Cleland's Fanny Hill, Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure, 1748, considered one of the first English-language erotic novels. Despite repeated bans and moral outrage, the book became widely popular. Its detailed descriptions of sexual encounters and female pleasure challenged social taboos and inspired fierce debates about censorship and morality. Illustrated engravings and prints also proliferated. Artists created explicit scenes that were hidden in personal collections or sold under the counter in bookstores. Some prints disguised themselves as anatomical studies to bypass censorship. Pamphlets and short booklets offered erotic stories, jokes, and poems, catering to different tastes and classes. They allowed people to consume sexual content privately, feeding a growing appetite for explicit entertainment. Censorship authorities in France, England, and other European countries worked tirelessly to suppress these materials. Seizures, public burnings, and imprisonments were common. However, these efforts often backfired, making the materials even more desirable and cementing their place in underground culture. The rise of erotic literature through print marked the beginning of mass-market pornography. For the first time, sexually explicit content could be distributed widely and inexpensively. It paved the way for future innovations, including photography and film, and reflected society's growing struggle between repression and curiosity. The printing press didn't just spread ideas, it spread desire. 6. Keycap: invention of photography and early pornographic photos. The invention of photography in the 19th century revolutionized the way erotic content was created and consumed. Before photography, explicit images were largely confined to paintings, engravings, and sculptures, which required skilled artists and considerable time to produce. With the arrival of cameras, it became possible to capture and reproduce erotic images quickly and with stunning realism. By the 1850s and 1860s, boudoir photography began to emerge in Europe. These photographs featured women posing in lingerie or nude, often marketed as art studies, for painters and sculptors. In reality, they were sold discreetly to private collectors looking for titillating material. In France, small erotic postcards known as French postcards became wildly popular by the late 19th and early 20th centuries. These postcards, often showing explicit poses or suggestive scenes, were circulated secretly among men and sometimes smuggled across borders. They represented an early form of mass-produced erotic content, offering affordable access to explicit imagery. Meanwhile, underground studios flourished despite strict censorship laws. In the United States and Europe, erotic photo studios operated under various disguises, producing images that pushed social and legal boundaries. These photos were sometimes labeled as medical studies or ethnographic research to avoid prosecution. Photography also laid the groundwork for erotic magazines. Publications began to include nude photographs alongside stories and illustrations. Over time, these magazines would evolve into mainstream adult publications like Playboy and Penthouse, blending erotica with lifestyle content. Technological advances in cameras and printing methods meant that photos could be reproduced in larger quantities and at lower costs. This democratized access even further, bringing explicit content to a wider audience and setting the stage for future developments in film. Photography introduced a new level of realism and intimacy. Unlike paintings or engravings, photographs captured real bodies, expressions, and moments, creating a sense of immediacy that earlier art forms could not match. It transformed erotic imagery from artistic fantasy into something more personal and voyeuristic, forever changing the landscape of adult entertainment. Birth of pornographic films. The transition from still images to moving pictures marked a new era for erotic content. As soon as motion picture technology emerged in the late 19th century, filmmakers began experimenting with sexual themes. The first known erotic film, Les Couches de la Marie, 1896, featured a woman performing a striptease, shocking audiences with its provocative nature. In the early 20th century, underground stag films became popular among private male audiences. These short, silent films depicted explicit sexual acts and were screened in secret gatherings, often in basements or private clubs. Stag films were rarely professionally produced and typically circulated through word of mouth and underground networks. By the 1960s, societal attitudes toward sexuality began to liberalize in parts of Europe and North America. Films like Sweden's I Am Curious, Yellow, 1967, and Denmark's legalization of porn in 1969 paved the way for more explicit content entering mainstream cinema. The 1970s ushered in the so-called Golden Age of porn. During this period, films like Deep Throat, 1972, The Devil in Miss Jones, 1973, and Behind the Green Door, 1972, were shown in regular movie theaters and attracted massive, diverse audiences. These films included plotlines, dialogue, and higher production values, transforming porn from purely underground smut into a cultural phenomenon. 7 Keycap birth of pornographic films continued. Adult film stars like Linda Lovelace and Marilyn Chambers became household names. For the first time, porn entered public discourse, sparking debates about morality, censorship, and artistic freedom. Feminists, politicians, and religious leaders clashed over whether these films liberated or exploited women, a debate that continues today. As video technology advanced, the industry shifted from film reels to VHS tapes in the 1980s. VHS allowed consumers to watch porn privately at home, boosting sales dramatically. This shift democratized access further and shifted power away from theaters to home viewers. The birth of pornographic films revolutionized not just adult entertainment but also wider cultural conversations around sexuality. It paved the way for porn to become both a billion-dollar industry and a lightning rod for controversy, shaping laws, social norms, and the future of sexual expression. Art Digital Revolution Internet Porn. The rise of digital technology and the Internet in the late 20th century transformed porn forever. In the 1980s and early 1990s, VHS tapes dominated the market, allowing people to watch explicit content in the privacy of their homes. By the mid-1990s, the emergence of the Internet opened an entirely new chapter. Early porn websites offered grainy images and short clips, often on slow dial-up connections. But even in these rudimentary forms, online porn attracted millions of visitors, signaling a shift toward instant, on-demand sexual content. Paid membership sites dominated at first, offering exclusive galleries and videos. As internet speeds improved and video streaming technology developed, full-length videos became easily accessible. The launch of tube sites like Pornhub, YouPorn, and Xvideos in the 2000s revolutionized the business model. Instead of charging for content, these sites offered free streaming, supported by advertising and data collection. This drastically increased the volume of content consumed and turned porn into a mainstream digital commodity. At the same time, the rise of amateur content blurred the line between performer and viewer. Affordable cameras and smartphones allowed anyone to become a content creator, sparking an explosion of homemade porn. This trend empowered many performers, but also introduced challenges related to consent, piracy, and exploitation. Subscription-based platforms like OnlyFans, ManyVids, and Fansly further shifted power toward creators. These platforms allow performers to interact directly with fans, set their own prices, and retain greater control over their content. For some, this model offers financial independence and creative freedom. For others, it creates pressure to constantly produce new material and maintain an online persona. With porn now just a click away, global consumption skyrocketed. This accessibility also brought new issues. Increased rates of compulsive use, privacy breaches, and concerns about underage viewers. Countries began implementing various restrictions, from mandatory age verification to outright bans of certain websites. The digital revolution didn't just change how porn is distributed, it fundamentally reshaped how people engage with sexuality. It has become a cultural force that influences dating, self-image, and public conversations about consent, ethics, and personal freedom. The Internet age made porn more ubiquitous, diverse, and controversial than ever before. 9. Keycap mobile porn social media influence. The introduction of smartphones in the late 2000s brought another seismic shift in how people consume porn. Suddenly, explicit content became available anywhere, anytime, from the privacy of a pocket device. Studies show that today, over 70% of adult content views come from mobile devices, making smartphones the primary gateway to online porn. Social media further blurred the lines between traditional porn and mainstream content. Platforms like Twitter and Reddit allowed adult performers to build personal brands, interact directly with fans, and market premium content on subscription platforms like OnlyFans and Fansly. Meanwhile, TikTok and Instagram, though officially banning explicit content, became spaces where suggestive or borderline sexual content thrived, creating a new wave of softcore influencers who monetize erotic appeal without explicit nudity. This new model empowered performers, giving them more independence and control. Instead of working exclusively for large studios, they could connect directly with audiences and keep a larger share of profits. However, this came with challenges, including increased exposure to online harassment, doxing, and mental health pressures to constantly produce and perform. The rise of ethical and feminist porn also gained momentum, emphasizing consent, diversity, and authentic pleasure. Many performers and producers began to market content that pushed back against traditional industry tropes, offering more realistic, inclusive, and empowering representations of sex. On the flip side, mobile porn and social media also fueled concerns about addiction and mental health. The constant accessibility can lead to compulsive consumption, relationship strain, and unrealistic expectations of intimacy and body image. Moreover, the line between adult content and influencer culture continues to blur. Some mainstream influencers cross over into adult content, offering explicit paywalled material to fans. Others use sexual imagery to build followers and brand deals without ever crossing into explicit territory. Privacy and age verification have become major global debates, with governments pushing for stricter controls to prevent minors from accessing explicit content. Some countries now require ID checks, but these measures raise concerns about data privacy and censorship. Mobile technology and social media have transformed porn into a hyper-personalized, on-demand experience while integrating it deeper into digital culture. It's no longer just a separate industry, it's intertwined with how we navigate fame, relationships, and identity in the online age. 10. Social, psychological, and cultural impact. Porn's influence extends far beyond private enjoyment. It has significant social, psychological, and cultural consequences. On the positive side, porn can serve as a tool for sexual exploration and education, helping people discover their desires, learn about anatomy, and break taboos around sexuality. Some even argue it empowers marginalized groups by providing representation that mainstream media lacks. However, the potential harms are just as prominent. Regular exposure to porn, especially from a young age, can shape unrealistic expectations about sex, bodies, and intimacy. Many studies suggest it can contribute to performance anxiety, body dysmorphia, and difficulties forming healthy relationships. Viewers may internalize unrealistic standards of attractiveness and sexual prowess, leading to dissatisfaction with real-life partners. Porn addiction is another widely discussed concern. While not officially recognized as a diagnosable disorder in all medical manuals, compulsive consumption can lead to withdrawal from social life, loss of productivity, and emotional distress. It can also reinforce escapist behaviors, making it harder for individuals to address underlying issues in their personal or emotional lives. Culturally, porn shapes collective attitudes toward consent and gender dynamics. Critics argue that mainstream porn often normalizes aggression, objectification, and male-centered pleasure. This can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and impact how people view and approach sexual encounters in real life. On the other hand, the rise of feminist and ethical porn seeks to challenge these norms. By focusing on mutual pleasure, diverse bodies, and authentic representation, these movements aim to create a more inclusive and respectful porn landscape. Different cultures approach porn in diverse ways. Some nations have more open attitudes, viewing it as part of personal freedom, while others impose strict bans reflecting religious or moral codes. Legal battles around age verification, performer rights, revenge porn, and deepfake technology continue to evolve globally, highlighting deep societal tensions about freedom versus protection. Porn is also deeply tied to technological developments. Advances in VR, AI, and interactive devices push the boundaries of intimacy, raising new ethical questions about loneliness, consent, and what it means to connect. Ultimately, porn is a mirror reflecting our desires, fears, and contradictions. Its impact on mental health, relationships, and cultural norms underscores the need for open, informed conversations about sexuality, conversations that go beyond moral panic to truly understand its place in human life. 11. Current global porn industry. The future. Today, the global porn industry is a massive and complex ecosystem worth over $100 billion annually. The rise of user-generated content platforms like OnlyFans, ManyVids, and Fansly has shifted power toward performers, allowing them to control their image, set prices, and connect directly with fans. This has transformed porn from a studio-dominated industry into a decentralized network of independent creators. Meanwhile, free tube sites such as Pornhub and Xvideos continue to dominate global traffic. They offer endless videos supported by ads and data collection, making explicit content more accessible than ever before. However, they've faced intense scrutiny over issues like non-consensual uploads, revenge porn, and inadequate age verification, prompting advertisers to pull out and governments to impose stricter regulations. Technological innovation is reshaping porn in profound ways. Virtual reality (VR). Porn creates immersive experiences that make viewers feel like they're inside the scene. Haptic devices and interactive sex toys synchronized with VR content further enhance the sense of presence. These innovations are not just technological gimmicks, they are fundamentally altering how people experience sexual content. Artificial intelligence (AI) introduces new frontiers and ethical challenges. Deepfake technology allows the creation of hyper-realistic pornographic videos featuring the faces of real people, often without their consent. This has sparked urgent debates about privacy, consent, and legal protections. Additionally, fully AI-generated performers and stories are emerging, allowing entirely synthetic fantasies that adapt to individual preferences. Global regulation varies widely. In some European countries like Germany and the Netherlands, porn production is legal and regulated with strong protections for workers. In contrast, countries like India, China, and much of the Middle East impose bans or severe restrictions, though consumption remains high through VPNs and underground markets. There is also a growing movement toward ethical and feminist porn, focusing on fair pay, consent, diverse body types, and authentic pleasure. While these represent a small share of the market, they highlight a shift in consumer awareness and demand for more responsible content. The blending of porn with social media and influencer culture continues to blur boundaries. Mainstream celebrities increasingly cross into adult content, and adult performers become lifestyle influencers, merging erotica with personal branding and entrepreneurship. Looking ahead, the future of porn is likely to be more personalized and immersive. Imagine AI-generated, interactive scenarios that respond to a viewer's emotions in real time, or virtual companions designed to fulfill every fantasy. While this might expand possibilities for pleasure and self-exploration, it also raises questions about human connection, addiction, and societal values. The global porn industry today stands at a crossroads between technological possibility and ethical responsibility. As it continues to grow and evolve, it forces society to grapple with deep questions about freedom, privacy, intimacy, and the very nature of human desire.